Here's the thing, we are going to do the same RAVAN topic in English so that we can be multilingual or bilingual. Bilingual, definitely.
2,000 years later.
Great king of Lanka, Ravan. But before we exercise this topic of how great of a king Ravan was, we're just gonna have to walk through the rest of the world that belongs in the same set era of Ravan. The era where the inception of this story had happened. The age of Ravan, the age of Ayodhya, the age of Ram, compared to the rest of the world that belongs in the same age, in the same timeline. So we're going to have to understand how great of archaeology, how great of technology, how great of cultures, how great of human beings that this world had ever seen to understand Ravan. So is he just another 10-headed mythological king of Sri Lanka? Boom. Or is it the greatest ever era of Sri Lanka? And is Ravan really a myth, a 10-headed scumbag? Or is this the golden era of Sri Lanka? Before Ravan, we just have to understand this age where the inception of this story or the origin of this story of Ram versus Ravan had happened. Now this age, this time period, this society belongs in the pre-industrial society. Now we are at the industrial society or post-industrial for that matter, but that age, it belongs in the pre-industrial zone where the farmers were the highest taxpayers. Now this pre-industrial society can't be monitored via the industrial or post-industrial methods because they were not technology based. Their best and the most strongest weapon was their architecture, not technology. Their technology was their ability in architecture and to build things, to design things, wherein us, we are most into technology based things, smart tech, thermal tech, all that tech stuff. But them, they were the best architects that the world had ever seen. Now, what are these other civilizations? What are these other cultures? What are these other traditions? Ancient Greece, ancient Rome, and for that matter, ancient Egypt, the best ever example. In the age of where science is so developed, we still do not have enough evidence, enough scientific evidence to define how ancient Rome and its impossible architecture was built. You might have heard that saying, right? Rome was not built in one day, but however it was built, nobody knows how it was done because of the magical and impossible architecture feats to erect such unexplainable designs that were done by the best of the ancient architects. It's beyond science. Now, the same could be said about ancient Greece, especially about their craftsmanship behind their architecture, how they have matched their architecture, their craftsmanship to match their legends. You could see standing evidences to support their legends. You could see the temple of Hera, you could see the temple of Poseidon, the remains of these sites, but you could see the statues of God of Thunder, God of Lightning, Zeus. You could see the statues of Hercules, the evergreen Hercules, the most famous god before Thor, I guess. Yeah, before Thor.
Flip too hard, damn it!
But the point is, these designs, this architecture, the craftsmanship of ancient Greece is beyond science. Ancient Egypt. I mean, there's nothing to talk about ancient Egypt because you could see the standing evidence of the Great Pyramids. The science they used to build these pyramids is beyond modern science. One of the greatest mysteries behind these pyramids is the science they had used to cut these rocks that is required to build the pyramids, and how to carry, pull the geometry of this is impossible. So the modern science, it says that the only way to cut such designs out of a rock would be the method of laser cutting that is being used in the age of Elon Musk. But you just cannot deny it. Just because science and no history can explain how these things, how these designs were erected, you just can't deny it, because you can see the remains of these pyramids. The only scientific claim and the only scientific definition that the modern day science could come up with in definition to explain the science behind these pyramids is that it was made by aliens or giants. And these pyramids, they're made in a way to generate electromagnetic power. Just guess, 7,000 years ago, they had that knowledge, that era existed to build impossible things. And it is supported by standing evidences. Not only that, the drill of modern day religion. The forefather of the modern day religions, it would be the ancient Egyptian religion. That is a lost religion right now. But these religious systems, I mean, it could be older than Egypt, but the way that Egyptians had imposed and invested religion into their culture, into their political system, is what we are following right now. So the ancient Egyptian religious tradition and their ways, their technique of religion is what we follow today. The only difference being that all of them ancient Egyptians, they just worshipped one set of gods, while we have 10,000 different religions and 4,000 plus gods. In this same age was the era of RAVAN in golden Sri Lanka as per the myth. RAVAN becomes a myth while the Valmiki written Ramayana, one of the two greatest scriptures of Indian literature, the other one being Mahabharata. So within the range of Ramayana, Ravan is depicted to be this supernatural being, a devilish king who rules the golden age of Lanka. In this story, he is depicted to have his own family and tagged as the grandson of creator of the world, creator of the universe, Brahma himself, which makes him a demigod. He is also an avid follower of Shiva. So this characterization of Ravan is where Ravan became a myth, and this is the story that they take to interpret Ravan era of Sri Lanka. This is where he becomes this 10-headed devil king of Lanka who was defeated and killed by India's greatest warrior, Ram. My not warrior prince. They had other Parashuram and or Meghanad, all of them, but Ram was a deity warrior. Now Ram is depicted to be the seventh avatar of Mahavishnu. So post Ram came Krishna, and post Krishna came Buddha according to the Santana Dharma belief, that is, Siddhartha Gautama was the ninth and the last avatar of Mahavishnu. 10 is on the list, about to come, yet to come. So the age of Ram and the age of Ravan predates the perceptions of Buddhism and followers of Krishna. That is not a perception that you can bring in interpreting these topics. On a quick note, the ancient scrapbook system, in Sinhalese Puskolapo. These scrapbooks contain palm leaves as pages. So whatever you write on these leaves. And the sustainability of these leaves would exhaust in like 200 to 250 years. So the same scrapbook system, the same original scrapbook that was used 7,000 years ago in the age of Ravan, in the era of Ravan, won't be the same evolving book, because down the line that book, that scrapbook will be replaced by new palm leaves so that the book and the detail could be sustained. Now it will pass few generations, because it will last for few generations, and in this time this original book was passed like for 200 to 250 years down the line. If these generations who are replacing these leaves had gathered more updates, more details than the original book, they will include it in the book, and it will be passed on to the other generations, and the other generations would include their updates. It's more of updates than manipulation in this sector. Religion can be manipulated, or more like politicized, but to manipulate such topics, then it should be by the greatest brain of world. They should master the art behind these topics to manipulate it. So yeah, scrapbooks, don't go by the leaves, go by the detail. Ram Setu, a bridge that connects India with Sri Lanka, a mystery that is beyond science. Now whether it's naturally erected or a man-built structure is beyond science, but the age of this structure is rightfully a 7,000 years, which means the age of Ravanera, the age of Ayodhya, the age of India's greatest Ram. So why is it in the same age range is beyond science, and to add on top of that is the floating stone that is only found within the parameters of Ram Setu. Another concern is that it's perfect craftsmanship. It's built in a way to walk. It's built in a man-like perception. Now the science behind this natural process is unexplainable by science, in which the dispute stands open.
A few moments later.
And there's yet another secondary but infamous evidence to validate the age of Ravan, which sort of aligns with the Ramayana myth to say that how a 10-headed supernatural being existed in the age of Ram. But the name Ravan is clearly validated. Now, this evidence is found in Aurangabad, India, and is called the Kailash Temple. Now, the mysterious and the mystic nature of this temple will be discussed in another video to come. But until that, let's just analyze the Ravan factor of this temple. Within this 1200 years old temple known as the Kailasa you could see few evidences that validates the story of Ravan era. There are two Dwajastambhas in the courtyard. Dwajastambhas in the sense pillars with flagstaff. In these Dwajastambhas you could see a notable sculpture is that of the Ravana attempting to lift the Mount Kailasa, also known as the Ravananugraha relief. Moreover, in this temple you could see Shiva being warned by Parvati about the demon king Ravana, the same demon king of Ramayana. And you could see the evergreen panel of Ramayana, which depicts the story of Valmiki written Ramayana. Now, this temple is 1200 years old and it does not sit with the Ravan era itself, but the name Ravan and the related architecture could be found even after 1200 years. Now, Ravana being a story that ages back to 7000 years, post that 1200 years ago, one dynasty built a temple that depicts the story of Ravan era, which cannot be ignored as they are standing evidences to say that this era did exist. If you do not impose the topic of Ravan into one certain individual, one certain great king, 10-headed king, then you're on the right track, yes. I mean, if you're open to define, to base your analysis on a lost era, if you analyze the greatest era that had happened 7,000 years ago, then you get your opening position to expand your analysis on the era of Ravan. But no, my analysis is on the greatest king of Sri Lanka who was killed and humiliated by the greatest Indian prince, Ram. Give up! So, I'm sorry to say, you do not have any perception on your analysis. You have an opinion of a great sage that lived few thousand years ago and his literature scripture called Ramayana. That is the only insight, literature, mythological insight you have. The Ramayana. Now, the difference between Arthur Conan Doyle, J.K. Rowling and Valmiki is Valmiki is a sage. That's it.